It's time for the 32081 Scoreboard Show. Let's recap the latest weekly scores and highlights from around the county.
And welcome back to the first edition of the 32081 Scoreboard Show right here in 2026. That's right, we're kicking off another great football season. And what better way to kick it off than with Mike the Knight from Creekside High School. Mike, glad to have you back. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well, Todd. Hard to believe it's already been a year since we've last done this.
I'm very glad you're back, and it's amazing that it's a year later, isn't it? But yes, thanks for coming back. I appreciate it, because I know you're juggling also. You got son in college now too, so glad to hear he's doing well. But thanks again for coming back and covering the Knights for us.
No problem. Appreciate it.
So this is something that has been drilled in my head by you. Creekside can't beat Creekside. That's what Max always says, right? That's it.
That's it.
Friday night, Creekside did not beat Creekside. They beat Nice. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of the game, I do want to say this. On Thursday night, I kind of want to get your feedback on this. On Thursday night, I was talking to some people. I was covering some JV games. And this game came up. And everyone was like, pretty much, oh, Nice against Creekside. Nice is going to win that game. And I was like, I'm not so sure about that. And they looked at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, you guys weren't at the Beachside Jamboree. And the one thing I was looking at that game, Mike, and I know I ran into you at that game as well, is that when I was watching Creekside play against Beachside and Clay, the one thing that I noticed was this, or two things actually. I was watching Rozzy, and his throws were on the mark, but you could tell the receivers weren't quite there yet because he was adjusting to the receivers. I'm like, well, if your quarterback can get the throw there, then that's a good sign. Everything else is going to come with the receivers. The second thing I was interested in looking at was the defensive line and seeing how they would react, because they looked a little smaller to me than last year. Maybe I'm wrong, but two things hit me was that, one, Rozzy was putting the ball where it was supposed to be, and he looked a lot calmer because he was thrown in the fire last year. So you could tell he had that year under the belt. But the other thing was, even against Beachside and Clay, that defensive line was shooting the gaps, and they were getting in the backfield and causing havoc. I'm sitting there going, for a jamboree here, this isn't looking too bad in the spring. So I kind of want to get your feedback. Was I correct on that? Was there some stuff I missed? But it just seemed like they had a little pep in their step, and things were kind of looking like they were on track for the fall back then.
Yeah, I think you're right on both accounts there, Todd. Especially, in fact, I was having a conversation with somebody about Rozzy yesterday, and just watching him on the sideline during the game, and while he was in there, he doesn't look like a junior, and he was just so calm and collected. And it's one of those, like, he's just got that mentality where his emotion doesn't change whether they're up 50 or down 50. Like, you won't look at him and get any indication of what the score in the game is. He's just so even keel, and I think the guys around him kind of feed on that. They don't really panic when things don't go their way. And on the flip side of that, I know a number of times, because things were going really well in the first half, I heard him telling guys, like, don't let them get cocky. Don't get cocky. We've got a long ways to go. So I think he's really come a long way as the quarterback and leader of that offense. And then to your point, defensively, arguably the two biggest surprises for me really through the first two games, I'm going to go back to the kickoff classic against Mandarin as well, has been the line play. You talked about the defensive line, and yeah, if you look at them, I mean, to the eye, there's nothing to be intimidated there. They're with the exception of maybe Mayberry when he's in there, because he goes both ways on the O-line and sometimes on the D-line. I mean, they're not an intimidating bunch to look at, but my God, they play so much bigger than they are. And to your point, they're just very quick, and they get back there, and they were putting pressure on the quarterback all night. And especially in the first game, or in the first half, I should say, really did a good job of shutting down the run game.
And that's the thing, too, because everyone's saying, oh, well, Nice is bringing back their offensive line and their defensive line is this. And I'm sitting there going, Creekside won the trenches on both sides. I mean, it wasn't even really close to me. I'm sitting there going, wow, especially like you said in that first half. And, Mike, I got to ask you about this, because this one it's funny. People say, where did the game turn? And some people, we'll talk about later what happened in the fourth quarter. But here's where I really saw the momentum change, even though it didn't go Creekside's way. And it really showed what Mac's mentality was and how much he believed in his defense was when you guys go down that first drive and you score, and it's, you guys are up 7-0. And then you come back and we're still in the first quarter. And what do? You guys kick an onside kick. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, this early in the game, but it set the tone. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that was a really gutsy move. The onside kick didn't happen. The defense does exactly what Mac expected to do, was hold them. Is that just Mac being Mac? I mean, were you surprised by that? I'm just curious. I mean, because I really thought that really just set a really big tone of like, hey, I trust you guys. Let's go for this.
Yeah, we were kind of surprised because, when we heard the call before the kickoff team went out there, a couple of the coaches, we were just kind of looking like, did we really just call that? Is that happening? And, sure enough, and it was really close to executing it. It was a pretty good kick. I think it was Roddy that was just a little bit late getting there. But that, and then, I can't recall what quarter it was, but there was a fake punt.
Yes, I actually had that written down. Yes.
And a first down as well. So I think that's, to your point, that's certainly sending a message to your defense that, hey, we trust you. We can do things like this because we're not afraid to put you on the field in, short situations. And, for the most part, they responded.
And then what was crazy was that fake punt you're talking about was in the second half. And if I remember, it was like 4th and 2. So your quarterback set back your punter set back like 7-8 yards, something like that. So it wasn't a gimme by any chance, and he put it right on the hands of the receiver, and you guys got a first down out of it. So
Yep. And that was just because the one thing that we've talked about the defensive line, but the one thing there is there's really not a lot of depth there. And kind of the problem that we ran into in the Mandarin game and a little bit in the second half of the Nice game is if the offense can't stay on the field and they've got a number of 3 and outs consecutively, it really puts a lot of pressure on that D line, and they tend to get gassed a little bit and aren't quite as effective. So it was I thought that fake punt, did a little bit better to get the defense some rest and, just kind of kept things going as far as momentum for Creekside in that game.
So that was the other thing I wanted to talk about also is the clock management, because you guys held the ball for a significant amount of time on the clock. The official stats aren't out yet, but one of the things I do want to say is at the end of the first, Creekside had the ball. And, of course, as we're going to second, you guys still had the ball. And I looked at the clock, and Creekside had the ball until 7:43 in that quarter, Mike. Coming off from the first quarter, if you control the ball that much, you're just, I mean, it comes to say you're limiting the other team with their chances to score. And then you couple that with the defense just giving fits to their quarterback and also their wide receivers and stuff like that. I mean, you guys just controlled the ball the entire game, it seemed like to me. I mean, Nice had to rely on big plays versus where you guys were able to grind and make really long, significant small yardage chunks to be able to drive that clock.
Yeah, you really nailed on it. I think it put Nice in a position to where they had to make big plays. Now, to their credit, the reason the game was close is because they did make a number of big plays and big catches. So to their credit for keeping, because if they don't make those plays, I don't think the game's as close as it is. And honestly, I think the real key to the game, if I'm not mistaken, I think Nice went 3 and out on their first 3 drives.
You're right, yeah.
And I think that just really set the tone for the rest of the game. I know it gave the defense confidence. I know that even spilled over to the offense because they were able to have some success. Because I think Nice's, we talked about what happens to Creekside, but I think Nice's defense was getting a little tired having to be on the field so long in that first half, which made things a little bit easier for Creekside's offense. So, yeah, I think that was really the key in setting the tone. And it's just a fun, I mean, especially on the defensive side, because that's where I spend a lot of my time. It's just a fun group to watch. And, things kind of changed there in the second half, and Nice made some big plays and got back into it. But credit to these seniors on this team, and specifically on the defense. They're just a group, Todd, that it just refused to lose. Like, they hate to lose, and they weren't going to let it happen. And they did everything in their power to make sure that they didn't lose that game.
But you said that Nice made some great big plays, like Tyshawn Ford. I know he laid out for one, I think, like at the 2 or 3 yard line that just, I don't know how he caught that ball. So you're right, they did have some plays, but they also had some big kind of dumb penalties too, because one of those cases was a couple unsportsmanlike. They had some defensive pass interference, so they weren't playing very I don't know, sometimes smart. Like sometimes it seemed like it kind of got in their heads a little bit. And that second unsportsmanlike, I think it was taunting. It looked like it was on the Creekside side. I couldn't tell what the official called, but it looked like it was going to be taunting. But what was interesting about this is that you talk about big plays. Creekside comes up with the block punt, right there in the fourth quarter. And what I thought was interesting was, again, you talk about Rozzy and his leadership. He looks so poised under center, leads him down, and then he runs off, if I remember correctly, left guard, I think, for the touchdown to punch it in. You guys go up 7. And then here comes Nice, right? Nice has a chance to do the same thing, and they have their, quote, dual threat quarterback, they say, and he tries to run it to the left end, which they did last year, like from 2 yards over. And guess what? Your defensive line is all over it and stuffs it there, and then they try a trick play to win stuff. So it just seems like I said, like you said, and like I'm saying here, the confidence for Creekside just kept building and building and building, and when you needed it at that tie ball game 14-14 in the fourth quarter, it just all came together for Creekside for a great win.
Yeah, things really fell into place there. And like I said, I think just, when Nice started to make some plays and had some big plays and got back in the game, I'll even go back to last year's team. I don't know that last year's team would have responded the way this one did, and just not letting up, staying on task, staying focused, and doing everything that they needed to do for the win. And I think no question, if you had to point to one specific play that really had the significant outcome in the game, it's that block punt. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, it gave us the ball around the 30-yard line of Nice. Yeah. And we've got a pretty good field goal kicker who's got some pretty good distance with his leg. So we already felt pretty comfortable that we were getting to be in his range. But obviously your goal is if you can get the touchdown, and they were able to put together a little drive, make some big plays. We went to the heavy formation that we used last year with Jackson Earl and this year with Blake Weeks. And it's just kind of, we bring in some studs from the defense, and it's just a lot of lead blockers, and it's wildcat and, snap the ball to Blake Weeks and let him do his thing. And, they used that formation a few times the other night, and for the most part, successful with it.
One other thing I want to leave you with this to see your thoughts on this. I agree with you on the block punt. It was a big play, but I actually think, for me, like I said, the two biggest plays I saw were, believe it or not, the onside kick, because I just think mentally it got in the kids' heads that, hey, Mac believes in us. Let's do this, right? But then I think also it was actually the play before, I think it was the play right before the block punt where the defense got the sack for like 11 yards. And that's got to mess with, that interior line. You're sitting here blocking, you just gave up a big sack. And I think that also got in the defensive line in your special teams line saying, hey, we can punch through this thing. And to your point, it led to that block punt, which just turned that game around, led to the touchdown and the eventual win for the night.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I can't recall who actually got their hands on that one, but I mean, to your point, there was so much pressure on the inside there. I think there was 2 or 3 guys that could have blocked that punt. It was one guy that broke through. But yeah, I mean, just overall, I mean, we talked about it. Unlike a lot of games last year where Creekside made some self-inflicted mistakes that cost them a number of games, they didn't do that. Not to say that it was a mistake-free game, but very few penalties. I think we only had like maybe one holding penalty in the game. Yeah. And got to give credit to that offensive line, because coming into the season, like I think from team camp on, we're down 4 of our 5 starters on the offensive line. So you're really looking, for the most part, like a second team offensive line that have played these last 2 games. So you got a lot you've got a lot of sophomores in there that have really stepped up. And I was having a conversation with one of the other coaches yesterday, and I said, those guys, because some of the guys are going to be coming back pretty soon from injury. So those guys that were, slated for that first team coming in, I don't know how many of those guys are going to win their job back. They're going to have to work for it, because credit to Spera, who coaches the offensive line. I mean, he got this second group ready, and I mean, they held their own against Mandarin, who we always know has a tenacious front defense. And, they certainly did the job the other night against Nice.
Yeah, now they're going to take on Fleming Island, and Fleming Island's a good team. I actually got to watch them last week at a little bit of a jamboree with Flagler, Palm Coast, and Bartram, and they've got some speed out there. But I think now the confidence is running high for Creekside. I think the Creekside Knights are just running on a high right now. But like I said, also, it was really cool to me. And I really want to get your thought on this, though. But I think also when you look at their schedule and you look at the district game, because you are going to play Flagler, Palm Coast, First Coast, Atlantic Coast, Tocoi, and Sandalwood. This is a great way to start the season. But more importantly, like you said about Rozzy was saying on the sideline, you never saw it, but their attitude never looked like they were getting cocky, and they just kept their nose to the grind. They kept pushing. They pushed through. And I think if this team can keep that mentality the rest of the season, and I think it's always been there, it's just good to see it come through for Mac and the rest of the Knights and the coaching staff. But I think if they keep this mentality, I think they could have a very successful season, especially in their district.
Yeah, without a question. I mean, it's obviously going to be a tough road. I think, you won't hear Mac ever, say this. I mean, the schedule is the schedule. It's going to be tough regardless, but it certainly isn't, what they faced last year. There's no rains on the schedule.
Or the year before too, wasn't it? The year before was tough as well.
I want to say it was at least 2 or 3 years in a row where we've had like a top 5 schedule difficulty in the state. So, I mean, we've never been afraid to play anybody. This year, just the way it works out with the new district and having to take on more district opponents, because for the last 2 years, we were only a 3-team district. It was just us, Sandalwood, and Atlantic Coast. So you had a number of other spots that you had to fill with non-district opponents, where, the district is almost doubled in size this year. So there's not as many opportunities to play your non-district opponents. And of course, we're always going to want to play Nice. We're going to always want to play Bartram. But, I think we add Fletcher this year, which we haven't played in a while. And of course, we got Fleming Island this week, which is, if there's one thing I've always told anybody, don't ever leave a Creekside Fleming Island game early.
Actually, don't leave a Creekside game now after the first week, Mike.
That's true. But I remember, I can't remember the exact number. I'll have to go back and look it up. But I know going into last year's game, there was some crazy, like the prior 4 Creekside Fleming Island games were decided by like a combined 6 points or 7 points. It was something ridiculous like that.
Wow.
And one of the best high school games I've ever seen was 2 years ago. I think we were down 20 points with like 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, scored, got 2 onside kicks, scored again, and ended up squeaking out of there by, I think, like 1 or 2 points with the win. So they're always exciting games.
Well, the Creekside Crazies, I'm sure, will be out this Friday night when the Knights host the Eagles from Fleming Island at 7 o'clock. So, Mike the Knight, thanks again for joining us this season. We truly appreciate you, and congratulations to the Creekside Knights, who win 21-14 over Nice. We look forward to talking to you next week, Mike.
Sounds good. Thanks, Todd.
And now, back again for his second season with us is Jawsome James from Ponte Vedra. Jawsome James, it's good to have you back. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Glad to be back for a second season of this.
I'm glad you are this week, because I know we talked preseason. You were a little nervous after the kickoff classic, and I told you, hey, just chill out. It's week 0. Everything's going to be good. But I got to tell you, if you would have told me that this score would have been 19-14 at half, and then Ponte Vedra lost 31-29, I'd be like, really? That's a good outing for the Sharks, because this University Christian team, they're good. They've got some good talent going D1 level. And, of course, Ponte Vedra is doing some shifting around. They got the new quarterback. I mean, Alex Winkles is back there in the backfield, but especially with Carter Soul now at quarterback and the new wide receivers, just the timing, you're kind of going, okay, how's this first week going to go? So I got to tell you, I know it's a loss, James, but it looks like it's, I would walk away feeling pretty darn good after this week 1 game.
Yeah, I mean, it's, our defense for the most part held up. We knew that their defensive line had a whole bunch of dogs in them, and they manhandled our offensive line. That's a new unit as well, with only 1 returning senior at left tackle with Sean over there. And, it was a little tough. There was a lot of high snaps and a lot of nerves, I think, for that game. But overall, the offense, showed up. The defensive line showed up. Our secondary gave up some big plays. Hopefully, there's some corrections that can be had for the next game. But overall, the offense surprised us with some efficient passing by Carter Soul, and as usual, Tucker Henderson just catching a whole bunch of balls and being that go-to target and leading the team with 9 receptions, which was nice to see.
And I think Carter at one point was 16 for 16, if I remember correctly. I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me on that. But it was good to see the juniors sitting back in the pocket and stuff like that. And, the other thing, though, with this that I wanted to see if you kind of saw the same thing I did was that it seemed to be kind of a messy game, especially for University Christian early on. There was a lot of flags on in this game, and on both sides, it kept the drives going and moving. But all in all, it seemed like, you got to see Harrison Letty, who's also a St. Johns County kid, play very good for University Christian. He had a big pass at the end of the game to the ginormous tight end they have, right? I think it was at the 2-yard line that set up the game-winning field goal. But did you sense that the first half was a little bit messy on both sides? When you say high snaps, I think that's the understatement, because I actually was wondering if Carswell got some credit for some receptions on some of those high snaps that he had to catch. And and then on the other side, you had University Christian snap the ball out of bounds for a safety in the first half. So did it seem like to you it was a little messy in the first half and it kind of settled down a little bit in the second half for both teams in week one?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like Ponte Vedra started getting its momentum in the second quarter, really finishing off drives. And then when it came to the start of the third quarter, I feel like they might have gotten a little cute and gotten into, some triple wing tee formation to get the second half started off with, which unfortunately didn't really work with that defensive line on the University Christian side. But yeah, the first quarter was a little hectic. Second quarter, Ponte Vedra settled in. UC never really got consistent play, but where how they won the game was with big plays, and that was the difference in this game.
And that's what I wanted to, it's funny you mentioned that, because I did want to talk to you about the difference between Ponte Vedra starting off this year and last year. So last year, of course, we had Cole Rosenthal with Alice Winkles, and now we've got Alice back there also with Carter. And for me, I mean, I saw some big hits that Carter took during the game, but it seems like to me that we were very critical last year of the Sharks and saying, you got to have the run, you got to establish the run. It's so cliche. And Cole was out there, throwing, I think, for like 300 yards, 340 yards, and everything else. We're going, we got to get the run going. It seemed like to me that the Sharks said, hey, we're going to come out and we're not going to abandon it. We're going to stick with it. It seemed like Coach Price was like, we're going to get this run going with Alex. And it also seemed that the chemistry between Soul and his receivers, there were some quick slants there. They didn't have to go for the home run ball all the time. They were able to move the ball. Like I say, it was 16-16, I think, at one point. And it just seems like they were able to kind of move that ball effectively and efficiently. And like I said, this game was only lost in the last couple seconds on the last second field goal. So you've got to be happy if you're a Sharks fan looking at how this offense was running.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't abandon the run. The nice thing is that it was, I believe the stat line has 15 rushing attempts officially, but it's still unbalanced, meaning I believe there was 38 passes. I mean, we're talking, 70% pass to run ratio. And at least it wasn't abandoned entirely, which is correct, but there's still that discrepancy, starting off. But got to give credit to the UC's defensive line. They stuffed the run, and I believe Winkles had 36 yards for the game on 12 carries, and so it was tough sledding. And so when that's happening on offense, you have to put the ball in your quarterback's hands and use the screen game, quick game to offset the studs that they have on the defensive line, but didn't abandon it, just like you said. And credit and kudos to the coaching staff for continuing to try to run the ball. But that's an area where with 4 new offensive linemen, that's something that they need to continue to work on and hopefully continue to improve that pass to run ratio.
And also, one last thing I'd like to mention here is that this game also showed, as we've talked about much in the past, about how important the kicking game is in the high school level today. And, Noah Ash kicked, I think the announcers were saying they were putting it at 52. He kicks that tremendous field goal. He falls up just short on what I think was a 58 following that or something like that. He was short on that.
That's right.
But then here's the thing what I wanted to talk about is how important the kicking game is that UC goes up 28-22. Ponte Vedra comes back, scores, ties at 28-28. And the reason why it was 28 was because UC's extra point kicker missed the field goal, or the extra point, missed the extra point. Ponte Vedra scores. You got Noah Ash there, Mr. Automatic. He kicks it, and they go up 29-28. And then, of course, you get the long pass and the field goal. But it just goes to show, really, James, how important that position is in high school football today.
Oh yeah, I mean, no ash is a weapon, and the with high school rules, if you miss a 58-yard field goal and it at least crosses the goal line, it comes out to the 20
Right.
yard line.
Mm-hmm.
It's not returnable. So that was hopefully the reasoning. He has the leg first and foremost to be able to make those kicks in the game. It just came up a little short, and it was actually not the greatest snap, or else I think it would have had a little bit better of the connection. But a complete unbelievable weapon to have no ash on your team. And going back to the extra point that gave Ponte Vedra the lead by 1 with a minute and 22 seconds left. I mean, you got to also give it up to Carter Soule again for finding the open receiver on the right side of the end zone. And, he found one of his favorite receivers in Cade Turner.
Mm-hmm.
The fans and the home team thought we were going to pull one out there and taking the lead with less than 2 minutes, but it just wasn't meant to be this time.
And to clarify also about the field goal try that you were talking about, I talked to Coach Price about that, and you're right. A lot of people don't realize this. It's not like college rules. So when you have a kicker like Noah Ash and you sit there and go, why is he kicking at 56 or 58 yards? Well, you have to think goals, end zone, goal line. That's what, as soon as it crosses that ball's dead in high school and it's going to come back out to the 20. So if you think about it, it's actually safer when you have a kicker with that size of a leg. You go for it, you miss it, okay, that's fine. But then on the flip side, by not punting it, you're not running a risk of putting it in the hands of a dynamic, return guy and having him return it for a touchdown or, a huge gain. So to your point, it's a lot better. Kick it. If you miss it, whatever, it comes back out to the 20, and it's almost like a safe punt, really. Yeah. So, listen, real quick. So, your Ponte Vedra, you guys are going to play Bishop Kenny next weekend. They played Impact Christian, I believe, and they won, 35-14 or something, I think, if I remember. I checked. Not a huge win again for them, I think, against Impact Christian. But, again, like I said, you always hate the loss. But as Ponte Vedra rolling into Bishop Kenny, you got to think, especially with losing on the last second, it hurts. But you're kind of going, wait a minute, we're in a little bit better position, it looks like, than we were. And also, this should be motivation going into Kenny saying, we're not going to get put in this position. We're going to lose by a field goal with 2 seconds left to go in the game.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, starting with the kickoff classic against St. Augustine, that was, an eye-opening or a learning opportunity for these boys. They took it, and the improvement that they showed against UC was unbelievable. Had the opportunity to win the game, just didn't fall their way. And then going into Bishop Kenny, if they can continue to make those strides, use that as motivation, like the odds. Bishop Kenny's a well-coached team, has a great coaching staff over there, has some good players. But Ponte Vedra's got a young team continuously improving, and should be a fun game to watch.
Awesome. Well, it's good to have you back. Jawsome James, thank you for joining us from the tank. We look forward to hearing what happens as the Sharks take on the Crusaders from Bishop Kenny next Friday night. Thanks again for all your coverage.
Yep, thanks for having us.
And for our final live update from, yes, he's back and he's ready to go, Billy the Bull covering Tocoi Creek. Billy, thank you for being back for the 2026 season.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I'm back this year just as a fan of the game and just love the sports and the football and everything around here. So I'm doing it just for the fun of it and being a fan.
Well, I can't thank you enough.
No ball player in it this year.
Well, I was telling Mike the night earlier, I said, I really appreciate having you guys come back because I know both of you, like myself, now have a child in college, though. So we'll be splitting it on the weekends and trying to watch some college football as well. So we appreciate it. And we hope that your son's doing well up at Presbyterian College, correct? That's where Brighton's at?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. That's
so
fantastic.
It's going to be fun.
So listen, let's talk about Tocoi Creek. I do want to start off something interesting. I was watching some social media, and something someone said was very kind of, I thought, telling about this program, because I think Tocoi Creek in general, not just with football, their athletic director's done a great job with culture. They've made some really good hiring coach openings during the offseason. And that is this, Billy, and before we talk about football, I want to see if you agree with this as a parent, is that what this reporter was saying was that the culture over at Tocoi Creek has just really gotten strong. Like, it's a really great culture. They know they've got to build the program. They're going to draw kids to the school. So as we talk about some of these wins and losses, I thought it was really cool to hear someone from the outside saying, hey, this program in the next 3 years, even though we all want it right now. But this guy was saying, hey, in the next 3 years, this culture is going to be something special over here for athletics at Tocoi Creek.
It really is, and you can see it, you can feel it, but if you look, you brought about Billy Blackman from the athletic director standpoint. If you look across all the sports over at Tocoi, they're competitive in about all of them. I mean, I think the girls' flag football team went to the state championship.
They did, yes.
I mean, if you the boys' basketball team was in the Final Four a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look across the board, like from an athletic standpoint, there's almost 3,000 kids at this school, I think. I mean, it's close to it. I mean, there's tons of athletes if you got that many kids. It's just a matter of which sports are they going to play, and you can see it because it's spread across all the sports with the talent and the amount of wins that they're putting up across in championships.
Yeah, I think there's just going to be some great stuff. And, of course, they hired Jenny Broham from actually a former UNF soccer player. I think it was a great pickup. She's been, a soccer coach here in the area for a while. So, like I said, I just want to point that out because I think Tocoi Creek's doing it right. And you're right, A.D. Blackman's just doing a fantastic job over there. Great guy, too, very personal. So, wish the whole athletic department great job. But as we roll into that, and to start off with is that Tocoi Creek, they went up against Bartram. Bartram, they're playing good football right now. And this one didn't go as planned. I'm sure Coach Dolan probably would have liked a different outcome. Tocoi Creek fell 37-3. But what are some of the positives that you saw come out of here? And also, can you talk about some of the differences you're seeing? Because we know last year that there was definitely an issue at quarterback with injuries and going in and out. And it was but where is this program now after last year? And what are some of the good, strong things that you saw after this unfortunate loss to Bartram?
Yeah, I mean, from the program standpoint, they're young, they're talented. I mean, every program's going to go through some things, whether kids go to other schools, whether, things that can happen, they stop playing. But that's just the nature, and it's cyclical within each program. But overall, the program is definitely progressing in the right way. They did get their quarterback that's the starter right now I can't remember the last name, you might know it, but his name's Charlie. But he came over to Tocoi from Beachside, and he is the starter, but he's a sophomore, a true sophomore. And another thing, I think somebody told me the Bartram quarterback was a true sophomore as well, and then the freshman that had a night. Yeah, he was at the running back. He was a freshman, from what I hear. So he had a great night as well. But from the nature of the program, they're young. I think from an off-season standpoint, it was noticeable last year, and it was noticeable against Bartram. The size. The size, every team that's been around for a while and established, you can see the size difference. And it was evident on Friday night versus Bartram. So that's one thing I think that will come with this program, and that's something that's been implemented as well. Coach Dolan knows it, and it's going to get much bigger from that standpoint of how strict they're going to be on that program. But it's evident that they've got to get bigger and stronger from looking at the other teams. But they have all the talent, and they have the amount of athletes that are going to be successful here. Having that sophomore quarterback come back and come in did help them a lot. So we'll be able to talk about that for the Bartram game.
And I believe the quarterback you're talking about for Tocoi, his last name is Bowler. Is that correct? Charlie Bowler?
That's it.
I think
that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I think you're right. I mean, let's talk about Bartram just a bit in this game, because I did cover Bartram when they had a jamboree type a couple weeks ago, and Fleming Island was out there as well as Flagler Palm Coast. Bartram had a little bit of a rough time last year, but you're right. Their quarterback, actually their potential starting quarterback actually transferred, I think. He moved out closer to Tallahassee, and then they brought this kid in. But, Bartram was looking strong in their jamboree. They've got some good runners. They've got some good speed, and they were fired up for that jamboree, and it looks like they were the same way for Tocoi too.
Yep. And that's one thing that hurt Tocoi. I wasn't there for the jamboree, but I heard it was cut short very early from lightning. That caused that. I think they might have got a series or two in.
I was there. Yeah, I think it was they got called somewhere around, I want to say 7 minutes or something in the first quarter because of lightning.
So I can go ahead and tell you this: they needed that. by the looks of Friday night, they really needed that jamboree to be able to work things out, because this game right now, this final score was 37-3, but in the first 10 minutes of the first quarter, where we had a block punt, there's turnovers. I think there was 2 turnovers, a block punt. The field position was in our side the entire time because of the offense. We couldn't get anything going offensively because of the pressure that defense was putting on the offensive line. of Tocoi, it was relentless. They were just in them right out of the get go from the first whistle. They were moving that offensive line pretty much wherever they wanted to go. So it was tough for the sophomore quarterback to get any confidence whatsoever to have a pocket to even do anything in. And the running game wasn't going anywhere because that defensive line, everything from the middle end was just coming in fast.
It almost seems like this game was a week 0 for Tocoi, because the other thing I heard was that Tocoi has seen, which is weird for some of us in St. Johns County, but that Tocoi has seen a lot of rain, that they haven't been able to get a lot of the practices in that they've wanted to. The field's been wet, the conditions, they've had to call it. So to your point, not only did they kind of lose that week 0 game against Orange Park by only getting a couple series in, but also I think the practice, if what I'm hearing is correct, is true, because like I said, I was talking to someone, it came up a very weird way. We were talking about the lack of rainfall, and someone was like, well, over near Tocoi, we've been getting rain almost every day. And I'm like, what? Over in our area, we haven't. And the other guy was like, yeah, I live near San Jose Airport. I haven't got anything. But it's true, and even last week I was out there for the JV games, and guess what? It was a monsoon at Tocoi, and someone I knew that lived over near the airport was saying, I got like 0.006 inches of rain. So it seems like that could have affected this as well, that this is almost like their week 0 game.
It felt like it. It honestly felt like it, because the amount of mistakes from just being undisciplined, whether they weren't ready, whether they just mentally weren't ready. But if they cut 50% of the mistakes and they clean that up this week, because they can clean up everything that went wrong. Like they can cut 50% of those mistakes, they become competitive immediately. Because, I mean, you're talking in the first quarter, I think they had 5 penalties. 5.
Wow.
So, and that's including the turnovers. So the offense just couldn't do anything. But I will tell you that the Charlie kid, once he could get a little something, even if he can move out of the pocket a little bit to get a little bit of time, I think this game really, really helped him. Even though he got beat up and he had to move, but he was really smart for a young kid to be able to move in around there. He didn't get injured, which he took a lot of hits. He can spin the football. Mm-hmm. And if he can get a little bit of time and this offensive line can find a way to just get him some time, he's going to be able to get it out there to the receivers, because they do have some talented young receivers. They have Christian Carson. They picked up a kid from Mandarin. I think his name's David Burton or something of that standpoint. So they have some weapons. But I'm not going to – you brought up the rain. Those weapons did not help that young quarterback in that first half. Mm-hmm. They dropped 3 that hit him right in the numbers. So from a confidence level, you got a young kid that's trying his first varsity game here, going against a line that is towering over his offensive line, and he's putting it on the numbers. You got to give him some help, because if you give that kid some confidence, you're going to be able to get a little bit good momentum going.
You've got to, and I think you're right. I think that's probably where they really needed that Orange Park game the week before that got canceled, because, Charlie was throwing some good passes, to your point. He was spinning the ball. Unfortunately, the grass was wet. It did look a little bit long, so people were talking about that. And he threw some great passes where a couple of them, I remember the receiver just fell down. Just slipped up and fell. So hopefully they'll get that stuff worked out. They'll start making the catches, you say, in the numbers, because you have to have that when you have a sophomore quarterback.
And a few things you can do with him. And Dolan's going to do these things. Mm-hmm. He's going to be able to set up some screen passes, change the snap count that's simple for this young kid, something to just get the ball out of his hands, right, and just get it in some of these playmakers' hands and just get some momentum. Because some of the passes that were going, it was something where he was on the run. He was just looking for somebody. Mm-hmm. So if we could just get some momentum going that way. The other phase of the ball that I do want to talk about is the defensive side. Yeah. That the defensive side of the ball looked really good, in my opinion. It went, even though you see those 37 points, it doesn't tell the story of the game, because the ball position, that field position, more than 50% of the time, they were already in scoring position. So it didn't work. It put them on the goal line fighting for their life to try and keep them out of the end zone. And at halftime, it was 14-0. So those points started coming on in that second half, but the defense fought hard. I'm trying to think of the kid.
Probably when they
first time starting linebacker. First time starting linebacker. If I was going to have a kid that was player of the game for that defense, was Cody Shields. I think that's his name. But his first-time middle linebacker, I think he's number 43, but he had a really solid game.
So is he going to be the one that's going to – so Tocoi had Blake Warner. He graduated. Aiden Ramos, in my opinion, kind of came in on that defensive side. You know, the quiet kind of – I say quiet kind of leader because if you know him, he's kind of quiet, but when he gets on the field, he does all the talking on the field, right? I mean, he's hitting people left and right. So do you see him kind of stepping up in that leadership role, or are there other guys on defense that kind of surprised you or stepped up as well?
No, B. Fred, over there on one of the ends, number 84. Mm-hmm. He's really worked hard in the offseason. He had a really good game. The linebacking core is the one that I was a little bit concerned with. Mm-hmm. But the Cody Shields really, I was surprised. I mean, very fundamental and a little ball hawk. I mean, he can lay a little lumber, and it's very technical how he does it. So I was impressed with him. We did have an injury. I think I saw Aiden Blakely. Mm-hmm. He was on the sideline. He's one over there in the end. Connor Souch was out there as well. They've got the ability to be a good, solid defense that's going to keep them in the games. Mm-hmm. They're not going to take over games. But if they can keep them in games and not make mistakes and maybe get some turnovers, because they got 3 turnovers in the first half. They caused 3 turnovers in the first half on Bartram. Wow. And guess how many points we got? 0. So the offense gets to clicking, take 50% of these undisciplined mistakes out, and the offense is going to make some plays, and then the special teams has got to clean up some stuff too. But that's stuff that can all be cleaned up, and when you show this tape, I'm pretty sure the kids are going to know they better get focused.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it I hope they get focused because they're going to be traveling to Seabreeze this week to take them on at 7 o'clock, and they were winners over Father Lopez, 30-14. So, but like you said, I think this is. I'm glad to hear about the defense. I was unable to watch the game, and I was kind of curious about that. But 14-0 against Bartram, who played well the week before in their jamboree. 14-0 at half is a good thing. So I think that you're right. I think Dolan's going to get this all cleaned up. You're going to have some of those playmakers make those catches, and the defense having them play the way they are. From what you say, that sounds like it's a good start, Billy.
Absolutely. I guarantee it's at Seabreeze this week. They're going to look like a different team. It's going to be much more disciplined and cleaned up. They needed to get that game so they could get a wake-up call. And then they've got tough games after that. Beachside, I think Bradford's on the schedule. And then we got another one, I think, that's on there, just one.
And Beachside's going to be after Seabreeze.
Beachside put 51 up in the first half. I saw it.
Yeah. Against Kip, yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, Todd.
Well, listen, hey, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much. Again, Bartram Trail beats Tocoi 37-3, and we're going to see them rebound. So against Seabreeze, I'm sure they'll walk away with a W there. So thanks again, Billy. We appreciate you joining us here covering Tocoi as well when you can, and we wish you and your family all the best.
Yes, sir. Go Toros.
Before we wrap up some scores, just a quick note. We would welcome any parents from Beachside or St. Augustine who would like to help us report on these games. You can reach us through our Instagram account at the 32081. Feel free to send us a direct message. The Barracudas of Beachside took care of business handily over Kip by a score of 58-0, while the St. Augustine Jackets did the same and handled Placa 49-0. This week's Friday night games with a kickoff at 7 o'clock are as follows. Tocoi Creek will head south to play Seabreeze. St. Augustine will host the Nice Panthers. Creekside is hosting Fleming Island, and as Mike the Knight reported, when these two teams meet, you're in for a doozy of a game. Beachside will enjoy an early bye week, and finally Ponte Vedra will travel to Bishop King to take on the Crusaders. For Billy the Bull, Jawsome James, and Mike the Knight, I'm the Todd, and thank you for listening to the 32081 Scoreboard Show.
Thank you for listening to the 32081. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the show so you can join us for the next episode.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
Until next time, take care.